With a series as expansive as Resident Evil that is known for its characters and its story, of course there are going to be some insane, crazy theories. Resident Evil has been known to leave the door open for different possibilities and potential ideas to be floated around the internet. However, some of these crazy and insane theories do actually make sense. And that's what I want to focus on with today's episode of Nerd Space. I'm going to dive down into the Resident Evil franchise and pull out the fan theories that actually have some credibility to them. So my name is Ruben with Nerd Space, and here are 8 insane Resident Evil theories that might be true. Let's get it. Number 8, Hunk is on Chris Redfield's Hound Wolf Squad. So there are a lot of mysteries surrounding the character of Hunk. He is one of the most mysterious character of the franchise, with the exception of maybe Ada Wong. And with that comes a lot of fan theories out there about this character. Some of them relate to Chris Redfield himself, as people seem to think that it is possible that Hunk could be Chris Redfield. But honestly, I feel like that theory is a little far-fetched, considering the fact that Hunk actually is responsible for retrieving the G virus and bringing it into the world outside of Raccoon City, and I don't see Chris Redfield doing something like that. But what I do see happening is maybe Hunk actually joined Chris's Special Forces team that we see in Resident Evil Village. And there are a couple things that kind of connect to that make it seem like that might be possible. First off, let's look at Hunk himself. Is this something that we can see Hunk doing? And honestly, yeah, maybe, kind of. I mean, he is a mercenary for hire, and he has been on a lot of different missions for different corporations. And of course, he's most recognizable for his work with Umbrella. However, it is possible that he could have found his way to the other side of the spectrum and actually teamed up with Blue Umbrella and be a part of Chris's team. And it would connect to another fan theory that a lot of people speculated about until Capcom kind of shut that down, and that's the fact that the Redfield that we see at the end of Resident Evil 7 is actually Hunk using Chris's name. Now, while Capcom did kind of shut that down and said, no, that's just Chris Redfield, that's just his face model that we used, and that's it, the fact of the matter is that the character did have a lot of resemblance to the version of Hunk that we have seen that is considered non-canon, but we still have seen pictures of what Hunk could look like, and it kind of resembles the Resident Evil 7 Chris Redfield that we saw. And it would make sense because the mask that Redfield wore was very similar to Hunk's mask. So there are a lot of connections that just seem too good to be true. So of course, these fan theories surrounding the fact that Hunk actually is part of Blue Umbrella, and it does make sense for him to carry on to the Hound Wolf Squad in Resident Evil Village. Yeah, it is possible he could be a member of Chris's team. And we all want to see Hunk again. So why not just bring him back for Resident Evil 9? Have him on the squad. He's working with Chris. I'm all for it. Let's make it happen. Number 7, Krauser survives the encounter with Leon Kennedy. So this actually relates to Resident Evil 4 Remake, where Krauser and Leon have one final battle before Leon finishes him off by stabbing a knife through his chest. And while that does seem like it would have killed Krauser, there is some doubt that Krauser actually did die. And a lot of it does come from the fact that Resident Evil 4, the original game, Krauser actually survived his encounter with Leon, and we see Krauser go on to take on Ada in the Separate Ways DLC. With that logic, technically Krauser could do the same for the Separate Ways DLC again, which means he would have had to survive that situation. And I don't know if a knife to the heart when he has the Plagas inside of him would finish him off. I mean, when you think about it, a knife to the heart doesn't seem like the sure way to kill a Los Plagos host, in my opinion. Not to mention, there are some little hints in the scene as Leon's leaving, as he takes one last look back at Krauser, as if hinting at the fact that he may not actually be dead. So I don't know, let me know in the comments, what do you guys think? Do you think Krauser is actually still alive? I feel like there were some story elements that we didn't get to see of Krauser, and maybe we'll see more expansive background for Krauser. I don't know, hit me up in the comments, let me know what you guys think about Krauser dying or living. Number 6, Chris Redfield is infected. Okay, so there are a lot of theories surrounding around Chris Redfield. Like we talked about earlier on this video, I mentioned how there was some speculation about the fact that Hunk was actually Chris Redfield in Resident Evil 7. And while that was shut down by Capcom, there is one theory that hasn't really been shut down completely, and that's the fact that a lot of fans seem to believe that Chris Redfield, some way or another, is either a BOW or he has been infected with some sort of virus. Or the other option is that he might be on steroids, which is probably the more likely outcome here. But this relates to the fact of everything Chris has been through, as well as comparing him to a lot of the other characters in the franchise, and the change in his physique completely throughout the franchise. First off, it doesn't matter how much steroids you take. I don't think any human being could punch a boulder into a river of lava. I just don't see that happening. That boulder was huge, and he literally just pushed and punched it into the lava. And while Capcom kind of jokes about that and realized that, you know, the fans are right, that doesn't really make sense, it could be explained away though, especially if it turns out that somehow, some way, shape, or form, at some point in Chris Redfield's long, extensive fight with the BOWs, he got infected. I mean, think about it. The guy is consistently on the front lines when facing BOWs. It does seem weird that he hasn't even, at any point in time, come across an opportunity where he just got infected. Like something went wrong and he got infected somehow. And we've seen people in the Resident Evil franchise get infected and come back with superhuman abilities some way. Sherry Birkin is probably the most recognizable character that has shown the most differences when we talk about characters that have been infected and came back with some abilities, because she was infected by G. Birkin to the point where after she was cured of the infection, she still had healing abilities, superhuman healing abilities. Jill Valentine has had some kind of infection influence throughout her entire life as well. Between the encounter with Nemesis, she was infected by Nemesis and then was cured thanks to Carlos, as well as her encounter with Wesker, who used a mind control device filled with the Ouroboros that could have very well left an imprint on Jill Valentine. So with that in mind, with other characters already showing some influence of abilities coming from the viruses, it does make sense that maybe Chris Redfield at some point in time has been infected, and that's where he gets his abilities and the change of his physique a lot, and seems to never want to die. Number 5, Ethan is alive. Ever since the conclusion of Resident Evil Village, there has been many theories surrounding the fact that maybe Ethan actually didn't completely die. Maybe he survived somehow. And the DLC Shadows of Rose doesn't really deconfirm that theory. As a matter of fact, it actually helps enhance that theory, because there are some hints that Ethan is very connected to the mold, and because a part of the mold still kind of lives, Ethan could still reconnect with that mold and be brought back to life in physical form at some point in time. It would explain the post-credit scene where we see Rose driving away and then we see Ethan's model walking towards Rose. That would explain that away easily if we were just told that maybe somehow Ethan was brought back to life by the mold and was able to reconnect with his daughter. This is not confirmed or deconfirmed in any way, shape, or form. We do know that the Winter Saga is pretty much over according to Capcom, so I don't know if we would ever get a full, complete answer on this theory. But without a doubt, it does make sense that this theory is possible. It's at least plausible. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Ethan somehow is still alive? Or do you think these speculations and theories are just completely unfounded? Number 4, the Merchant is Luis's grandfather. So in Resident Evil 4, one of the most mysterious characters in this game is the Merchant. For some reason, he is helping Leon throughout his adventure, and he just keeps popping up out of the blue no matter how fast you move from location to location. He always seems to be one step ahead of Leon. Now, while this is extremely useful for the player, the fact of the matter is from a lore point of view, we really don't get any true answers about this character. Hence why we have a lot of theories and fan theories surrounding this character. And one of the most popular theories that does have some credibility and does make sense is the fact that the Merchant is Luis's grandfather. See, we learn more about Luis in the remake specifically. However, we learn more about his grandfather and his backstory. Apparently, when Luis was younger, his grandfather was infected by a rabid dog that was carrying a strand of the Las Plagas. And the chief at the time, in order to prevent the rest of the village from being infected, locked Luis's grandfather inside his house and lit it on fire and burned the house down. However, just like with any horror game movie out there, if you don't see the body, then that doesn't mean they are 100% dead. So it is possible that his grandfather could have survived that incident. And what adds credibility to the fact that that person might be the merchant is the fact that the merchant seems to just appear and reappear in different locations faster than Leon can get there. It always seems like that he's always one step ahead of Leon. And we learn thanks to some files that there are actually secret tunnels hidden under the village and around the village that only Luis's grandfather and Luis knew about. And that these tunnels could help you get to different locations a lot faster. If this is true, then it would mean that the merchant knows about these tunnels. And if only 2 people knew about these tunnels, Luis and his grandfather, and we know the merchant is not Luis, then it would make sense for the merchant to be Luis's grandfather. I don't know, I'm on both sides of this argument. On one hand, it does seem a little bit too crazy and over the top, but on the other hand, it does kind of make sense. I don't know, let me know in the comments. Do you think the merchant is, in fact, Luis's grandfather? Number 3, Billy Coen is dead. So there are a lot of fan theories surrounding characters like Billy and other characters that have only appeared in the series once and then we never hear a single mention of them ever again. And that is exactly the case with Billy Coen, because after Resident Evil 0, we don't see or hear anything about Billy Coen except for that Rebecca reported him dead. And with that in mind, we are left to speculate what could possibly have happened to Billy and why hasn't he reappeared in the series at all. Well, let's look at the facts that are presented to us at the end of Resident Evil 0. First off, we last see Billy entering the woods by himself next to the Spencer mansion. Do you guys remember the events of Resident Evil 1? Do you remember how the STARS team was actually attacked by a bunch of zombie dogs leading up to the Spencer mansion? Therefore, confirming that the woods do have infected in them, which means there are monsters spread out around the woods near the Spencer mansion. Also consider the fact that the Spencer mansion is located in a very isolated place. It's far from Raccoon City and there is no public area anywhere nearby. So with no civilization anywhere nearby and with monsters infesting the entire forest around Spencer mansion, let's face the facts. How is it that Billy could have survived that situation? We know he wasn't on the one helicopter that flew out of there, which was with Brad. We know we've never encountered the character or even see Rebecca mention the character in any other Resident Evil content. So the fact of the matter is, there's really no chance of survival for Billy Coen. How could he have survived this situation? Even if we took the zombies and monsters out of this situation, he has one long ass journey through the woods to get to survival. And I don't care how trained of a soldier he is, that's not an easy task. So I have to say without a doubt, honestly, in my opinion, there's no way Billy Coen made it out of the Arklay Mountains. And though we don't get confirmation from Capcom, and though we haven't seen any confirmation anywhere else, I have to say that this is probably the case, that I don't think Billy Coen made it out of the Arklay Mountains. Number 2, Carlos is with the BSAA. So I mentioned with Billy how there are a ton of different characters who really only appeared once in the entire franchise and we never heard from them ever again. Well, Carlos is another one of those types of characters. He's only appeared in Resident Evil 3 and has never been seen other than like files pertaining to the fact that he went to South America for one reason or another. Other than that, we haven't heard anything from Carlos since then. But one of the biggest theories out there is connecting to the fact that maybe Carlos joined the BSAA. I mean, when you think about it, it does make sense. Carlos was a merc for hire. He was a mercenary and he worked for Umbrella. And because of that work that he did, it ended up hurting him because he saw what Umbrella caused. And that was the people he had to work for. So since then, he had a hatred for Umbrella and BOWs. And the one organization that he would have known about, thanks to Jill, that fought against BOWs and Umbrella and organizations like Umbrella would have been the BSAA. And with his experience, it does make sense for him to join the BSAA since his good friend Jill joined. So I do understand this theory and it does have credibility. While there's no confirmation of this, we haven't seen any kind of files or story details confirming this. This is probably the most plausible answer here. Now, he did go to South America, so maybe he's part of the South American division of BSAA. We don't have any details on that, but you have to admit, this does make sense from a story point of view for where Carlos might have ended up at. But number 1, Albert Wesker is alive. Okay, so this one's probably more of a pipe dream for anybody that is a huge fan of Albert Wesker. We all love Wesker. He was my number 1 villain in the entire Resident Evil franchise. Check out that video, by the way, if you haven't. I'll put that at the end of this video. But the fact of the matter is that we last see Albert Wesker in the middle of a volcano getting blown up by not 1, but 2 rocket launchers. So to kind of go with this theory, we first have to explore his death. How could Albert Wesker have survived this incident? He is one of the most intelligent villains in the franchise. Not the most intelligent, but up there. So I could easily see a character like Wesker, who always seems to have like a backup plan for his backup plans, surviving this incident. The question is, how does he do it? Could be the fact that maybe this wasn't the real Albert Wesker. Thanks to the experiments conducted by Oswald Spencer, it is possible that Wesker could have been a clone for all we know. We don't actually know if that was the real Albert Wesker or not. Another option is that maybe his abilities were just too powerful for both the rockets and the lava. I mean, he did fall into the lava and got out of it like he was in a pool, like a swimming pool. And that didn't seem to have any effect on him, so I don't see why rockets would have an effect on him. But straight up, all of these theories around the fact that Albert Wesker might still be alive really comes down to the fact that us fans just don't want to let the guy die. We love Albert Wesker. We think he's probably one of the most iconic villains in video game history, and to let him die is heartbreaking. So there is still a lot of hope and hype for the fact that maybe Albert Wesker returns in the franchise in some way, shape, or form. We did get a little teaser of him in Resident Evil 4 Remake. Maybe Capcom changes the ending with the Resident Evil 5 remake, maybe? I don't know, that's a stretch as well. But let me know in the comments, would you guys like to see Albert Wesker still alive? Or do you think the guy needs to stay dead and Capcom just needs to move on past Wesker and leave the guy alone? But that's gonna do it for this episode of Nerd Space. Guys, hit up the comments, let me know your opinions, let me know some of the craziest theories that you guys have heard of, and let me know what you think about these theories that I've gathered together. Do you think any of them actually has some credibility? Do you believe any of them? And if you haven't already, consider hitting that subscribe button, guys. It really helps the channel out. Share this video with your friends and family, and then leave a like or even a dislike on the video. But as always, guys, I'll see you on the next episode of Nerd Space. Take care.